So our next speaker is our fifth speaker, Jonathan Watts, and he will be distinguishing between cultural groups in order to better serve those with diabetes.
If you're attending this event, there's a likelihood that you're studying a discipline in health and human development, or already in the field, or perhaps both. Regardless, the story of how I find myself on the stage today is probably relatable, even if those criteria do not apply to you. 2 years ago, as I was an undergraduate senior approaching graduation, I asked myself, well, I'm a graduating senior. What's next? I decided to visit a former professor of mine, Dr. Patty Kwan, in health sciences, and upon sharing the news that I would begin my Master of Public Health that fall of that year, she expressed interest in having me help her with her research. Thanks to the CAMINO grant, I was able to apply for a research assistant position, and I began working with Dr. Patty Kwan as well as Dr. Lawrence Chu from Health Sciences, along with Dr. Edith Chen from Asian American Studies. Today, I'm here to share with you a project that I've been working with them on that was funded by the National Institutes of Health, or NIH. Let's begin with the shocking fact that diabetes is estimated to cost the United States $176 billion each year. In addition, there's another estimated $69 billion in costs associated with reduced productivity. Furthermore, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, estimates that approximately 30 million Americans have diabetes. Because 90 to 95% of cases of diabetes are type 2, that's what my colleagues decided to focus on. Specifically, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, NHANES, estimates that between 1988 and 2012, 1 in 5 Asian Americans have diabetes. Now, this is a rate that is approximately twice as much as their Caucasian, or as I'll be referring to them in this speech, non-Hispanic white counterparts. So they have twice the rate, and while there has been research establishing that Asian Americans have a relatively high diabetes rate, a lot of studies up to this point look at Asians as one whole. So in other words, they're not taking into account the cultural differences that comprise Asian Americans. So the difference between somebody who's Vietnamese and somebody who's Japanese, they come from very different cultures, and there might be very unique factors that come into play with this disparity in diabetes. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of studies, at least population-based, have yet to be done on this is due to small sample size. So if we have a relatively large ethnic group, whether that's Latino or in this case, Asian American, if we start to subclassify that into smaller groups, when we're attempting to run statistical analyses, we run into issues with power that can affect the validity of our results and the reliability of them. Now, in order to mitigate this issue, my colleagues and I decided to use secondary data provided by UCLA's Center for Health Policy Research, and this is known as the California Health Interview Survey, or CHIS for short. The reason why California is a great population to sample from for our purposes is California has one of the largest Asian American populations in the United States. Now, in order to measure our outcome variable, which is presence of diabetes, we used the item on the questionnaire that asked respondents, has a doctor ever told you that you have diabetes? With 3 possible responses, yes, no, and borderline or pre-diabetes. Now, we included this last option as a yes response for the purposes of this study. In total, our sample yielded over 40,000 respondents that represent over 28 million residents who actually live in California in total. Of this, approximately 10% of our 40,000 sample respondents were Asian Americans. So we had a sample of Asian Americans over 4,000, and we decided to look at 14 ethnic groups overall, but for today, I'm going to focus on 10 different ones. So we're going to start off with non-Hispanic white as the comparison, as well as non-Hispanic black, and Mexican as comparison groups for Asian American. Now, the reason why we decided to focus on Mexican is because actually 4/5 of the Latino population in our state are Mexican. So we just wanted to, be specific about who we're referring to for Latino. And for the Asian American group, respondents ranged from as low as 450 Korean respondents upwards to over 1,400 Chinese respondents. So here are our results. The bar second to the left is Mexican, and we can see that they have the highest diabetes prevalence rate in California. But let's go ahead and look at the purpose of this study. So this gold bar here represents the all-Asian group. They have a moderately high diabetes rate. Now, when we take that gold bar and we disaggregate it or separate it into some of the top 6 unique cultures that comprise this, which we looked at in this order: Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Filipino, South Asian, and Vietnamese, we can actually see that the specific groups who comprise Asian Americans are actually relatively heterogeneous, or they are quite varied when it comes to diabetes. So for instance, this orange bar indicates that actually Filipinos have the overall highest diabetes rate in California. Conversely, we can also see that towards the left, in the blue, Chinese and Japanese are among the lower diabetes rates, almost comparable to non-Hispanic white on the very left. And one of the most surprising findings, in my opinion, was that South Asian overall actually has the 3rd highest diabetes prevalence. So when it comes to what this all means, findings from the study demonstrate the utility of disaggregating ethnic-specific data with respect to the unique culture groups that comprise it, because otherwise we can often mask these nuanced differences that can help better serve these communities. Now, while these results are applicable to California as a state, California is unique because it has a very diverse population, and it also includes a lot of old and new immigrants. So therefore, findings from the study may not be generalizable to the United States as a whole or to all Asians in the world. Another limitation of the study is that we use phone survey data. So this is self-reported, and it's not an actual clinical measure of diabetes. So we may actually have an underestimate of the true diabetes prevalence rates among all of the groups we looked at, because there's something known as recall bias, in which our respondents may fail to accurately recall whether or not a doctor has told them that they have diabetes. Now, in spite of these limitations, my colleagues and I hope that public health researchers and practitioners will begin to reconsider the groups who they're serving, whether they're Asian American or Latino or any other ethnic group, because there's a lot of cultural minutia and nuance that might attribute these differences that we see among these unique cultures. And specifically, what public health professionals, health educators, and doctors can do is they can specifically design health education programs and other interventions that are designed to actually meet the specific needs of those who they're serving, and ultimately this can provide a better context for the Asian American community who are becoming a concern when it comes to diabetes.
Jonathan, your presentation was so thorough that, to tell you the honest truth, I don't have any follow-up questions.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for informing us on better ways to better serve our community, especially when it comes to diabetes.